Welcome to the Millionaire Life Coaching Podcast, where discovering human potential is key. Join us as we interview some of the top thought leaders, change agents, and progressive business minds on the planet. Hello and welcome to the Millionaire Life Coaching Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Tarocco, and today I have the privilege of speaking to Philippe Matthews of the Philippe Matthews Show. Philippe has interviewed everyone from Harv Ecker to Suze, Orman, Russel, Simmons, and Deepak Chopra. He is also referred to as the Oprah of the Internet by Mark Victor Hansen. Philippe, how are you doing today?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Awesome. Very good. So really good to have you on the show. You've interviewed some really inspiring people, authors, change leaders, and that sort of thing. And as far as I understand, you came out with a book today.
Yeah, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. I mean, it literally came out today. We put it up today. The Micro Outsourcing Almanac for 2015 is basically the top-rated Fiverr and SEO clerk gigs for authors and publishers. One of the things that has happened since this is now my 8th book, that people always ask me, how do you manage your publishing company and what do you do and who do you hire and how do you, pick people and get all of this stuff done in such record time. And so I decided to take all of the people that I've used, including some new ones that I haven't, that show promise of gigs from Fiverr and from SEO Clerk, and put them in this book so people can actually use the same people that I'm using to get the results that they need and to expand their business. So it's really something, I don't know if it's been done before, but I mean, it's like, okay, it's like the guru giving it to the student right, fresh firsthand, and you don't have to go in there and go through thousands of people and perhaps thousands of dollars to find the right people to get your book done or to get it promoted. You work a lot in the internet marketing space as well, and you said there's some instructionals on SEO and outsourcing SEO and stuff like that, which everyone's starting to realize is kind of important. It's vital. Without SEO, you have nothing. So I also forgot to mention then that Philippe Matthews is also a internet marketing expert as well, and certainly can never have too many of those. Yeah, actually, yes, we can, because there's a bunch of schmucks out there that don't know what the hell they're doing. Yeah, you know what you're doing. I know what I'm doing, but there's a lot of folk out there that have no clue, and it's sad, but it is what it is, Absolutely, yeah, it's an interesting industry. But the bottom line is, if you do know what you're doing, or if you do research or read something like Philippe's book, or hire someone or outsource, it does work, and there's a right way to do it. Philippe, one question that I've wanted to ask you since I discovered your podcast. I've been listening to a lot of your podcasts. You've interviewed some incredible, inspiring people. What's your favorite episode? Oh my God, that's one of the questions I always. Yeah, it's the hardest question anyone could ever ask. It's like top three. Okay. Robert Kiyosaki, the late Zig Ziglar, and probably top thrhree. That is just wrong, Brandon. Probably Les Brown. I know, right? Les Brown, because before I released this book, for the last couple of months, I've been promoting My Four Fathers, which is a book about 4 of the world's greatest mentors and motivational speakers, that when my parents died when I was 14, I found them and they became my virtual fathers. And Les Brown and Zig Ziglar is one of them, and Brian Tracy and Dr. Dennis Waitley are the other 2. So, but then I thought about like my interviews and television that I've done, and also radio, and then I know Robert Kiyosaki had a huge, profound effect in my life, still does to this day. So that's just the worst question you could ever ask. I'm like, oh God, because I could go on and on and on about all of them. I know. I was going to say you probably couldn't even fit them all into the top 10, because you've had some incredible people that you've been fortunate to speak with. What's been the driving force behind this industry, the motivational
self-help industry for you?
Ending generational poverty, because that's where I come from, and learning how to train your mind or train your brain to not repeat the poor habits of the previous generation. So that's really been my motivation. It's one of the reasons why I launched my nonprofit, the How Movement, to really train young people and their parents too on how to remove this, or should I say reboot, this part of the brain that literally gets shut down when it's exposed to systemic financial struggle and poverty.
So tell me a little bit about what you've learned in studying these gurus in self-help around dealing with poverty or training yourself to move into a wealth mindset.
The answer to that is kind of multiplicable. One, I asked the question, how can one eliminate generational poverty from their mind? And the second question I asked myself is, why is it there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of self-help tapes, gurus, and products, and the problem still doesn't go away, and there's a lot of people that are still struggling. And so that haunted me and has haunted me for 25 years. But what I found was fascinating. I found that there's an actual neurobiological component to self-help, if you will, meaning that if someone is exposed to a life trauma, which generational poverty or exposure to poverty can qualify for, but even, a divorce in the family, losing of a house, illness, all of those things can contribute to this part of the brain that literally is kind of like the circuit breaker for stress in our brain and how we handle it. And when it becomes overwhelmed, it shuts down and ceases to function. The byproduct of that is that when an opportunity presents itself for somebody to help themselves, they either sabotage that opportunity or just absolutely can't see the veracity or the success of that.
Wow.
And that was mind-blowing to me because it then asks, it's not about the self-help systems. In other words, you probably already have your best self-help system on your shelf right now. But if it's not working for you, that means there's another component neurologically that is stifling you from being able to unlock that wealth that's already on your shelf.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's very interesting because, in PSI, they talk about how, the neurological functions of myelination in the brain and where, it strengthens the predominant thought patterns. But what you touched on was something completely deeper than that, and that's when you're exposed to a trauma or some sort of habitual emotional experience or pattern, then the part of your brain which is able to respond to an opportunity, it actually shuts down.
That's right. It's called the VMPFC, the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, not to get too technical here. But it's fascinating because what's happened is there are a lot. In other words, when this happens, you are no different than a veteran coming back from war. That's the extent of the neurological damage or strain that has occurred. So you might have post-traumatic stress disorder and not even know it. And because you were exposed to it for a period of time, or especially if you're still in that type of fight or flight situation, in other words, living paycheck to paycheck, not knowing how you're going to pay the rent, not knowing what you're going to do the next month, how you're going to survive, that takes a toll neurologically on this part of the brain, and it can only hold it can only be trained to hold so much stress, and then it just shuts down and ceases to function. and then you can kind of see why people do some really dumb things in the name of trying to help themselves, and in fact, become addicted to self-help.
Wow, that's an incredible insight, because even if you don't have a specific traumatic event, what you're saying is that potentially you could slowly over time, through stress and strain, decommission that part of your brain which is really there to serve you.
That's correct. That's correct. And it's fascinating because, when we don't know necessarily, because we're trying to self-regulate in this self-help world, we don't know when cortical shutdown occurs. We don't know when that part of the brain stops working, because we're thinking that, oh, well, if I'm active and doing something, then, maybe it's going to get better, and that's not necessarily the case. It's kind of like Zig Ziglar back in the day when he said, are you a wandering generality or a meaningful specific? So a wandering generality are people who are busy, but they're not really accomplishing anything. They talk a great game, they go to all of the seminars, they buy all of the books, and it looks impressive, but when you look deeper into their life, it's not, there's a disconnection there. So that those people, you would say, oh, they're fake, they're phony. No, they have a disorder that's been unknown to them, because this part of the brain is not functioning, so they can't see or comprehend logic.
Wow, that's and what was the technical name of that part of the brain again?
Called the VMPFC, ventral-medial prefrontal cortex.
Wow. So where did you learn about this, or how did you start getting into this level of psychological neurology and the scientific aspect of the power of thought?
That is an excellent question. The answer, again, is multiplicable. I started asking questions on every other level. So I started to say, okay, maybe it's theological. So maybe I'm not praying enough. Maybe I'm not tithing enough. And so I started interviewing all of the spiritual gurus. So I talked to Deepak Chopra. I talked to Wayne Dyer. I talked to Iyanla Vanzant and Marianne Williams, all of them. You name it, I've talked to them. And found that there was still a disconnect and not a correlation, because I was doing a lot of speaking engagements in the metaphysical and religious science communities, and found that, most of the organizations that were talking about wealth and prosperity were broke. So I said, well, there's a disconnection here, so I'm looking at the theological aspect. So let me go and let's see if there's some psychological component, So, okay, I go and talk to, noted psychologists and psychoanalysts, and, through that, come to find that the next logical question was, well, if I'm talking to psychologists about the mind, I should talk to neurobiologists about the brain and how the two intersect and work in combination, because you can't have one without the other without ending up dead. So I started talking to and learning the questions to ask neurobiologists, and that's where I discovered it. And I discovered that this part of the brain, in terms of our habits and how habits are formed, of course, we have good habits and we have bad habits. And poverty, financial struggle, is a habit. It's fascinating. I'm getting ready to release a series, actually, on this very thing, because I just said, let me trace back and see where did poverty come from in America and in the world. And come to find out, it's design. It's an actual plan, a government system and plan that has a complete and total system that makes money and earns billions and billions, trillions and trillions of dollars from poor people. And so it becomes very cyclical. And then, of course, with the neurobiological aspect entering into that, makes it almost absolutely impossible for people to break out of poverty. And because the theological part of it doesn't work, because the brain recognizes that it's not there. So let me give you an example. The neocortex is like the big brain. It's like a file cabinet that stores all of our memories, all of our vocabulary, all of our behaviors and everything and actions that we take within this particular file cabinet system. So some organizations and religions say, well, if you just think positively, if you just continue to speak affirmations of positivity, you'll eventually come out of it. Well, the problem is the neocortex automatically, if you say, I am rich, I am rich, I am rich, the neocortex goes back and says, okay, let's look and see where were you at any point in time in your lifespan were you rich. If it can't find that information and corroborate that information, it rejects it. So what happens is so what happens? Now you're going back every 7 days trying to pray it off and tithe it off and affirm it off. It ain't working because the brain has already locked you out and said, hey, there's no reference here that you've ever been rich. There's no so it's one of those things. So it's really learning the ologies of how to train your brain and not necessarily using your mind, but not just focusing on the mind.
So focusing not just on the mind, but then also on your thoughts and your potential biological reactions to your thoughts.
You have to change your neurobiology. So the work that needs to be done actually changes the physical comprehension or standard of your brain. So your brain literally changes.
To quote Deepak, because I recall him saying that to think is to practice brain chemistry. And what you're saying is let's take it another step further. And, you're practicing brain chemistry, but I think what you're alluding to is how we can learn to master our brain chemistry in that fashion.
That's correct. It's almost, there was a point where I actually stopped believing in self-help systems. I stopped and became very jaded about the self-help industry, the personal growth and development industry, until I discovered this neurological component where it was like the aha moment for me, because there are people who are, if you will, there are people who are born who are biologically resistant to success coming out of the womb.
Sure.
Okay? So their entire life becomes a struggle, and it doesn't have to be.
Right, but it kind of comes out pre-programmed for them, and those are the people who have to try harder to master.
That's absolutely correct. You and I might take for granted having an automobile where we drive and go to Starbucks. There are people who might be within a 50 or 100-mile radius of both of us that have never had that concept, don't have a car, and have never stepped in a Starbucks.
I think that's a fact that most people probably don't consider too often.
Well, no, because one of the tenets of self-help success is surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And so once you are on that path and on that journey to be around great people and great minds, which is one of the reasons why I started interviewing and launched my own show and what have you, is so that I would have access to these brilliant minds. And, here we are 25 years later where I've interviewed, in My Forefathers, that book is 25 years of interviews with Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, and Dennis Waitley, the greatest minds in motivation on the planet. You learn something as a result of that type of time put in, and you continue to do so. And, I remember having a conversation with Kiyosaki, and he says you do at times run out of the value of a mentor, and then it's time to step up and go to the next mentor to ask harder questions and to challenge yourself more. Depending upon what that part of the brain and the health of the VMPFC is going to be determinant of are you going to be able to go to that next level, and if you go to that next level, will you be able to sustain it?
Right, because even if you're able to supersede the trauma or whatever's holding that part of the brain back temporarily, you have to train it back the other way.
Yeah, because your neocortex, again, like I said, it has all of your memories. So the memory of you not being at that next level is stronger than the memory of you being at that level. So you never can really get comfortable once you get that next level or have sight of that next level. You got to work extra hard to maintain it. Otherwise, your memory, your neocortex, is going to snap you back into the previous reality because it's the most familiar.
Wow, that's some incredible insight. You know, Philippe, I mean, that too was part of the reason that I wanted to interview you, because on your show, you're busy listening to other people, and I thought it'd be great to hear what kind of things that you've learned and that you're bringing to the table. I got to say, I'm blown away. I mean, you're hitting some really important issues.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, and I appreciate what you do as a result of allowing a platform for speakers and experts and gurus to come out and talk, because it's an intimidating process sometimes. But the same thing that we're talking about applies to your line of work. Now, here you are, an unequivocal expert in SEO, and you have a huge population of what I call wannabe internet marketers who are just floundering in the wind, and rather than just pick up the phone, call you, download your ebook, I think it's $35, download it and learn from someone who's already been there, done that, they'd rather struggle and run on the hamster wheel and then run out of time, because as you know, when you're dealing with internet marketing and dealing with Google, you're dealing with a finite time period until they change those damn algorithms. So what worked last month for SEO ain't gonna work necessarily this month. And so, rather than run out of time, run to an expert and let that expert launch you into that next level.
Absolutely. I had recently, we made a single change. One change, we had 9,000 new URLs indexed, and, the result obviously was thousands of new real-time visitors. So, SEO is like a tool in the marketing toolbox, right? Everyone needs tools, and everyone's got different ways of doing things, and everyone brings something to the table. Tell me a little bit about your publishing business. How long have you been publishing? What kind of things have you published? What's your distribution like? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I've been publishing for a long, long time. I started in 1998 with an e-zine, and then that e-zine allowed me to interview a lot of these wonderful, great, brilliant minds that we have been talking about. And then it allowed me to, in 2001, I launched out and published my first book. I was one of those persons that was always talking about, one day I'm going to do a book. I was that guy. I'm going to do a book one day, and it's going to, and never do it. And it was Mark Victor Hansen who kind of put the fire in my belly and under my butt and said, dude, you've got to do this book. You've got to do a book. And so I decided to do, my first book was because of what was happening in the country at the time. My first book was How to Make Millions When Thousands Have Been Laid Off. And it was during the time when thousands of people were being laid off left and right from these major corporations. And yet there were millionaires that I was hanging around, like Mark Victor Hansen, like Louis Brass, like Kiyosaki, making millions every year, and not feeling any effect whatsoever of a bad economy. And I said, whoa, is there such a thing as becoming recession-proof or recession-resistant? And so that was my first book. Now, my first book, of course, was done the worst way. I did it traditional publishing, self-publishing. I bought up, 10,000 books and stored in my garage and paid all of this money. And so I decided my second book and so on, I started to learn the self-publishing process. And, of course, the technology became better and better. And then, here comes Amazon, 5 years or so ago with Kindle and CreateSpace. And I said, oh, my God, this is a game changer because with Kindle, with Amazon, I believe every human being who has a story to tell of overcoming anything needs to tell it, because that's the one thing or commodity that is recession-proof and recession-resistant. There are over 300,000 books or more that Kindles that come out every single year.
Wow.
Every single year. And some are selling, some are not, but the fact is that they're coming out. So, and there's billions of people on the planet. We like, as a species, we like to hear and read, even if it's the same story over and over again. If you just change one thing or maybe change the continent, it could be the same damn story, but we'll read it again and say, wow, this was a great book. So I believe everybody should, at this day and age, in the game that we're in now with Amazon leveling the playing field, where a child literally can be a best-selling author in a matter of a month of publishing. This is where I am moving and where I am staying. I respect the algorithms of Google. I respect the algorithms of Facebook and Twitter, the social sphere, but the algorithms of Amazon are actually designed for you to succeed. So if you take a little bit of knowledge that you've used in Google and social and apply it to the algorithms of Amazon, the sky's the limit.
Wow. So talking about the money and sales in selling on Amazon, what's the difference between the books that are selling on Amazon and the ones that aren't?
The difference is the algorithms of it's a similar SEO, actually. The tags are the keywords. The description is most important because your keywords need to be in the description. And there is an actual thing, I guess, I don't know the technical term of it, but there is a SEO component to the algos of Amazon, where you can manipulate that. Now, one of the manipulations is what I understand is the categories, and learning how to manipulate and maneuver in those categories. So I'll give you an example. I've had books where I launch it in one particular category, and then let's say I do a free promotion. So the free promotion gets the book in the algorithmic system of Amazon. Once it's in the algorithmic system of Amazon and you turn off the free faucet, if you will, if it's in the correct category, it will soar. But then sometimes what will happen is you only get two categories to choose from when you put a book up on Amazon. So sometimes what will happen is you'll do what, and a lot of people don't even know about this, is what's called category hopping. So if you do well in one category and you can then change that category to a more competitive category, but because you have the algorithmic juice from that promotion being successful, it automatically places you at the top of the next competitive category that you choose to go into, as opposed to in Google, if you're trying to fight for a particular key phrase or key word, and it's very broad or general, you have probably no chance in hell of getting there unless you spend a hell of a lot of money or you are literally a microsurgeon in terms of SEO. Right? But in the algorithms of Amazon, that actually works on your behalf. So if you are successful in a smaller category, and then hop out of that category and place yourself into a more competitive category, Amazon actually rewards you in terms of algorithmic or mathematical response back in terms of sales.
That certainly makes sense. I guess if it comes down to that, Amazon is kind of establishing itself as the predominant book search engine, as YouTube has become the video search engine and Google the web page search engine. There's certainly new applications and opportunities being created every day with the internet.
The goals are different. Google is in business to pay their stockholders. So it's not efficacious for them to make it easy for you to make money. Amazon is the opposite of that. Amazon wants you to make money because guess what? If you make money, Amazon makes money. So there is a unique difference there. And I would even say to you, Brandon, get published, get Kindle, get on there as quickly as you possibly can, and use the same knowledge that you have acquired in the traditional search engine optimization and apply it to the algorithms of Amazon. And hey, I'll see you on the bestsellers list. I mean, literally.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate the insight. Obviously, that's some very good information there.
Now, another trick with Amazon is multiple publishing. And so don't think you're going to go on there and get rich off of one book. You might get to a bestsellers list, but there's also a situation where after you are on that bestsellers list for Amazon, it'll be a drop-off because now all of these other books are coming out competing in the same space for the same time. But if you can, the goal is to get to that, what I call the secret 20. If you can get to 20, 25 books on Amazon, all of those books linked to each other book, then you have, similar to what used to be, which has now been slammed by Penguin and Panda, which used to be a link a wheel, but you can do it, but Amazon loves link wheels as long as they're linked with all books. If you're able to do that, you're in the six-figure range.
I guess for new authors, get writing.
Yeah, I guess. and that's what the outsourcing book is about. I've got another book that I'm working on coming out to teach people. You don't have to necessarily. Now, because I'm crazy, I do write all my books because I'm just crazy that way, and I like writing. But if you don't like writing and you don't have that natural ability to write about a lot of things or anything, doesn't mean you can't be a successful six-figure author. It just means you have to outsource and have it ghostwritten, and that's what the micro outsourcing almanac is about. I'm giving it away for 99 cents. So you can go in there and find somebody to write your book and then use all of the other resources in that book to get the book on Kindle, including formatting it the whole nine and getting the cover done and all of that. So I am really stressing to America and to the world, publish your story, or if you don't have a story, publish somebody else who does have a story.
Tell me about the outsourcing. How do I outsource a book that my name, I'm the author, but someone else wrote the book? How does that work?
Okay, beautiful, beautiful question, Brandon. I can see we're going to be friends for life because you got the most intelligent questions, so those always reap the most intelligent answers. So here's the thing. You and I, because of what we do, we kind of operate at the enterprise level because we're always leveling the playing field in terms of the work that we do. Most people are afraid of operating at the enterprise level, don't know the rules of the game, and don't think twice when they go and pick up a book that, let's say Hillary Clinton, who came out with her book. Do you think Hillary Clinton sat up and wrote a book, 600-page book? No. Those are called ghostwriters. They sit down and they hang out with these people for sometimes 3 months, 6 months to a year. Now, in the traditional ghostwriting sense, that kind of person is talking about probably $250,000 to $1 million in ghostwriting fees because they're writing the book, they're interviewing them, and they're putting their life together. In the micro outsourcing world, especially if you're talking about self-help, all you need is a topic, and then you go and you have that outsourced person write that topic, say 5,000 words for a small ebook, 10,000 words for a big one. Anything more than that, you are, a god in the subject. and you can get that outsourced for little of nothing. And then now you have a book that is well researched, and now you are an expert on a subject because you went out and got the research done. Your outsourcing and ghostwriting in this part of the world of internet marketing is basically somebody that's going out doing your research data for you. So a lot of people don't understand that. They think, oh, that's cheating. And it reminds me of what Robert Kiyosaki told me years ago. When you're a kid in school and you look at somebody else's paper, it's considered cheating. And then he said, but when you're an adult and you look at somebody else's paper, it's called mentoring, right? So it's called sharing and mentoring. It's a completely different mindset. So start thinking at the enterprise level when you're dealing with self-publishing your books, and stop looking at yourself as a small, lowly little writer or something like that. No. When you're coming into the game, once you learn the game, you're automatically at the enterprise level because not too many people get a chance to say, I'm an author in their life. And when we talk about, turning that part of the brain back on, doing something that has never been done in your family history is one way of ensuring that that part of the brain gets stayed on and locks on to a system of success.
Consistently creating these new reference points for your, for that file cabinet in your brain to have something there for when you affirm that you can do something or you're doing something.
Well, think about this. If you, let's say somebody in your audience works for Walmart, right? So if they're working at Walmart, they're working for almost minimum wage. So their brain is completely locked into anything and everything that has to do with that level of living and that level of life. If they decide to go out and start writing a book, they're doing something that is completely contraindicated to someone who is living a minimum wage existence. The brain knows that you can't make millions or make hundreds of thousands of dollars as a minimum wage earner because you're trading your dollar for time. You have to physically show up to earn that dollar, and you can't earn more than what it is you're being paid for because you are committed to that time. However, when you are an author, the brain automatically realizes, well, I just have to produce this thing one time, and there's a potential for millions of people or tens of thousands of people to buy this, and I don't ever have to leave my house. The brain, the neocortex, can recognize that, and then it starts to open the floodgates of your potential and possibility.
And it's also what I refer to as the creative mind or the creator within us, because you're creating an asset. If you're poor and you don't have anything and you're trying to create something, you write your first book. Well, now you've entered into the creator mindset. You create something, and it's an asset.
You can't create anything when you are using the same part of the brain that keeps you in survival mode. So you can't get another job to get another job and get another job to think you're going to make more money to get out of the race. It's not going to happen. You got to create something outside of yourself that can grow and expand beyond your physical presence having to be there.
You've hit so many great points, Philippe. I think it's amazing what kind of power we have to succeed. Is there anything else that comes to mind for you when speaking about creating these new instances in your mind?
Yeah, wherever your biggest fear and your biggest doubt is, that is where your potential lies. And so you should go and attack it and go and jump right into it. So whatever you fear and whatever you doubt is going to work, probably will, because that's where your biggest fear is. So wherever your biggest fear is, that's where the plug is that is covering up that part of the brain that is saying, hey, I have no memory of you doing anything like this before. So go there and start there. So it's kind of like putting your fears first, or like Robert Allen told me years ago, get up in the morning, dig a hole, throw a bear in it, and jump in with the bear in the hole. So,
Get out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Your comfort zone. I'll never forget that as long as I live. So that's really it.
Awesome. Well, that's great, Philippe. It's been absolutely a pleasure having you on the show and talking to you. If people want to find you or they want to find your books, where should we send them?
Yeah, the easiest place is booksbypm.com. So books, plural, by pm.com. Booksbypm.com.
Okay, booksbypm.com. And then I think there's also the pmshow.com. That's if they want to hear your podcast.
Yeah, and it's all connected. The great thing, again, about Amazon is you get a page, and that page you can connect your site to, your Twitter, your Facebook, your videos, everything. So everything will interconnect, and they'll be able to get to all of the other content as well from there.
Perfect. And if you're still lost, look up Philippe Matthews. I'm sure you'll find him somewhere on the internet.
Yeah, it's kind of egotistical, but yeah, just punch my name in the Google there, and yeah, it'll be about 25 years of Philippe right in there. So yeah, you'll find me somehow.
That's a good thing. That's great. Well, Philippe, thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, absolutely incredible, profound message from someone who's taken 25 years of the greatest minds and written books about it, interviewed them. And Philippe, thank you so much again for being on the show, and we'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate it, Brandon, and thank you for doing what you do, and you're doing great work in the world. I appreciate you. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Millionaire Life Coaching Podcast. For more information or to book your free session, go to millionairelifecoaching.com.